Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be looking at the ADI Part 2, the ability to drive, part of the instruction qualification process. So the aim of this video is to help people just like you, to help you pass that test, hopefully first time. If you've already taken an attempt and failed, then maybe some of the points in this you can actually personally relate to, because we're going to be looking at the top reasons for why people failing and give you a strategy to deal with not making those same mistakes. So we're going to be looking at the DL25. We're going to focus on the middle bit here, section 17, response to signs and road markings. Okay, so this is a really common area where people make mistakes, largely caused by people not looking and planning far enough ahead. So a really good strategy we could help with that is to introduce commentary into your drives to raise your awareness, your situational awareness of what's happening, particularly in terms of signs and road markings. So we can use a little system called OAP, not old age pensioners, we're not going to use them today. We're going to use observations, anticipation and planning. So if you can observe things early enough, you can anticipate what's going to happen and have a plan in place, so by the time you reach the hazard, you've nailed it. So you won't be bringing in the brakes sharp or in the wrong lane, for example. There is another strategy you may have heard of called coast, not to be confused with coasting, but this is coast spelt C-O-A-S-T. It's very similar to OAP. It's concentrate, observations, anticipation, space and time. So just another strategy to help people plan their drive so they have a strategy really to cope with the hazards that are coming up ahead. It would be advisable to try and find a trainer that is used to dealing with the Part 2 test, because it's a different animal to the license acquisition, the practical driving test. So ADIs spends, their bread and butter is spend most of their time is helping learners acquire their driving test, and it's a different standard of driving test to the Part 2. So you'd be best to try and find a trainer that deals with instructor training, and if they've got the audit qualification, the audit badge, even better, and get someone with experience who really knows how that test works, because it is different. It's a different standard. For example, they'll want you to make much more progress than they would on an L test. That's quite a common reason for people failing that. So yeah, so get yourself a good trainer and work hard, practice. That really is the key. Get out there and do it. Work on it. It's like anything. If you want to achieve something, put in the hours, put in the graft, put in the work, and you'll achieve it. Believe in that, believe in yourself, and you'll do fine. Okay, so at the start of the test, the examiner will explain that it's a test of your driving ability, and they will be requiring a higher standard of drive for this test. In terms of direction, the examiner will explain that you just need to follow the road ahead at all times, unless road markings or signs say otherwise, which is really key to this video actually. And if the examiner needs you to turn left or right, they will let you know in plenty of time. The tests will include 2 manoeuvres and possibly an emergency stop. The test will also include a period of 20 minutes independent driving, which may either be by sat-nav or following road signs, which the examiner will explain at the time. Okay, so let's look at the scoring system. So we're looking at the DL25, the green sheet. That's the test report that the examiner will fill out at the end of the test. So if the examiner observes a driver fault, they will record that in the long box. So for example, look at section 17 on the form, response to signs and signals, traffic signs. There's a long box with 2 strikes in it. So 2 driver faults have been recorded with a total of 2. If we look to the other 2 columns, we've got a column for S and a column for D. So that's either serious fault or dangerous fault. So here, if you record a fault in either of these boxes, it would be a fail, and that's the same in the L test as well. So serious is potential danger was observed, and for dangerous, actual danger. So another road user would have had to slow down, swerve, take direction, change direction, for example, or maybe you was going to break the law, like driving down a no entry, for example. So if we look at the ETA box on the right column, that stands for examiner took action, and then there's a little box with a V or a P in it, so that's either they took verbal action or physical action, i.e. they used the dual controls or had to grab hold of the steering wheel. Verbal would obviously be like, just stop. I want you to stop here. Okay, so how many faults are you allowed to be able to pass this test? Well, for a part 2, as we said, it's a harder test than the L test, so you're only allowed a maximum of 6 driver faults. 7 driver faults would record a fail, and of course no serious or dangerous faults should be observed. If the examiner witnesses a high frequency of driver faults, let's say for example road markings there where we've got 3 faults, so that fault is occurring 3 times during the test. Now if we get to 5 driver faults in that section, they will record a serious fault. So once you get to 4, you're okay. The next fault in that box will record a serious, and that would be recorded as a fail. So you could potentially just get 5 faults, but all in the same box and not pass the part 2 test. Okay, so let's watch some footage of potential areas where people quite commonly get driver faults. So here we're coming up to a mini roundabout. Now we need to go round the roundabout and not over it. So avoiding going over the white paint, over the dot in the middle. So aim to get your front wheels round it. It's okay if your back wheels clip, but do make your best effort. And here we've got another roundabout we're approaching where we're going to be going ahead. Now just look at the way this is laid out, so you can see why drivers might just take the shortcut and go over the top, but we really do need to be going round to observe those road markings and avoid getting those needless faults. Okay, stick with road markings now. Here we're just about to go onto an entry slip onto the dual carriageway, and the road markings on the left are a solid white line. So we don't want to cross that, but it is surprising that people have actually done that during test and gone into that as a lane. Needless to say, that would record a serious driving fault. And also let's stick with the road markings. On the right we've got a solid line and no broken white lines through that hatched area, so we really do need to stay in our lane until those lines break to make a safe entry. Okay, so let's look at road markings down the centre. So we've got hazard lines at the moment, and now a solid line on our sides, changing to a solid line on both sides. So no overtaking on either side. But do you know the exceptions to what you can overtake in these within these road markings? So for example, could you overtake a pedal cyclist under 10 miles an hour or a road maintenance vehicle? So the answer to that is yes, but as long as it's safe to do so. Okay, so we're in Norwich here. We've just come out of the Norwich Test Centre at Peachman Way. So we're going to be turning right at the roundabout, which is the 3rd exit, if we count that exit on the left. So 1, come around to 2. You're going to take the 3rd exit. Now just have a look at road markings here. So what do they tell you? What do we need to do here? So it's a solid line, hatched area, so we cannot go through that. Going through that would record a serious fault. And at the next roundabout we're going to go ahead, so it's safe to do so. When the lines break, we should return to the left hand lane to the normal position for going ahead, unless of course we're overtaking. Okay, so we've just exited the roundabout. We've got broken white lines. We don't want to go through that hatched area even though they are broken. We're going to return to left lane if safe to do so, and observing the 40-mile-an-hour limit. So it's so easy to let your speed creep up here as you're trying to match the speed of those other cars merging in with us. So we just need to be aware of those speeds, be aware of road markings, and notice the slip road that we've taken here at the roundabout. We can go up to the roundabout and turn left, or we can just use the slip as we've done here. Okay, so we need to observe signs here, because remember at the start of the test the examiner told us to follow the road ahead at all times unless signs or road markings tell us otherwise. So we need to be in that middle lane because that is clearly marked for the road ahead. Okay, so as we exit the roundabout here, I've just slowed the video down so we can look at road markings and signs. So see the low bridge, high vehicle lorries are being directed to take the centre line through there, We obviously don't need to do that. As a low vehicle, we can just maintain a normal driving position and drive through. So if you drift out to the centre, you will get a fault recorded. Okay, so this roundabout we're going to be turning right, third exit towards Great Yarmouth. Now look at those road markings, so we can see that we can turn right. Road markings are saying we can use the left and the right lane to do that. Normal driving position is the left hand lane unless we're overtaking. So we'd use a signal for that red car to come round in the left lane to our exit, and that would be the correct thing to do. You will get a fault if you use that right hand lane if you're not overtaking. If however road markings or signs are not clearly visible to the driver, the examiner will direct you and tell you which lane you need, or advise you, for example, you can use either lane here. So if you get that choice, then use the correct lane. Normal driving position is left. Okay, so we're into the city centre now. We've got a cycle lane on our left marked with a solid white line, so we really don't want to be driving in that, as road markings tell us not to. Okay, so we've got another cycle lane here on our left, this time marked with a broken white line, and notice how narrow the road is. So here it's totally acceptable if we need to drive in that cycle lane, but we mustn't affect cyclists, so look out for those. And here we're going to look at road markings, look at traffic ahead, stopping. So we always want to keep junctions clear anyway, especially if they're marked as keep clear. So that's advisory to keep that clear, and as a good driver we'd be planning well enough ahead to leave all those junctions clear. Here responding to traffic lights, so the lights change, nice easy one, going to come to a stop. Now, do you know what type of crossing that is? How would we know? Have a think about that one. So we're now out on dual carriageway in a 70-mile-an-hour limit, coming up to a roundabout, but if we get our eyes on main beam, we can see a 40 limit coming up. We need time to check mirrors, bring in the brakes, get that speed down to 40 miles an hour before we reach those signs. Drifting in there at 50 will earn you a serious driving fault. Okay, so let's look at some more signs here. Look at the bus, stopped at the bus stop. Cars starting to overtake, but look at what they're going round to overtake the bus. There is a sign on that bollard, a round sign, which means that's an order. So you must keep to the left of that bollard. So needless to say, going around the wrong side of that is breaking the law and a serious driving fault on any test. Okay, so let's look at this one. Remember the examiner said at the start of the test, follow the road ahead at all times unless road markings or signs tell you otherwise. Well, where do we need to go here? We must go round to the right. If you tried to go up there, the examiner would need to intervene. Okay, so how good are your observation skills? As you come round here, if you're doing a commentary picking up on all signs, just notice up here on the left, we've got a give way with a stop sign and the distance 50 yards to the junction. So we would notice that as we're coming around, we see hazard lines, we see a stop sign, we see stop on the road and a stop line. Therefore, we must stop. People fail this test all the time for peeping and creeping and not actually coming to a physical stop. Okay, so let's look at some traffic lights now. Turning right, so here we're on green set of lights. So no problem here, turning right. But some people have been known to stop at these secondary lights. Notice there's no stop line, so of course we just keep on going. Stopping there could be dangerous and would result in a fault. Now look at this set of lights turning right. Okay, so very similar to the last one. So we're just going to speed it up in the middle here because we have to wait quite a long time for these cars to come through. But notice we're on a green, no filter light on this one. We're just waiting for a safe gap to cross. Lights are changing. So in we go. Now as we come round the corner, are these secondary lights? No. They're distinct lights, distinct crossing with a stop line and a set of lights each side of the road there. Okay, so let's stick with pedestrian crossings. Here we have a zebra crossing, lady on the right approaching. Is she going to step on? Well, let's be cautious and give way to her. So we wouldn't want to carry on through there, because if she of course gets 1 foot onto that crossing, then that would be a serious fault, and we should give way to those waiting at the crossing. Just notice as we go into this road, the signs there, so we're on a bus lane contraflow, so we can go up here. And now in the city centre, got a pedestrian crossing, so it's a pelican crossing with the flashing ambers. So of course we may proceed if safe, as long as no one's on the crossing. If we wait there, that would be marked as hesitation if it's clear to go. So let's look at bus lanes now. Now this one catches a lot of people out on their Part 2 driving test, and indeed the L test. So on our left we have a blue sign coming into view, indicating that there's a bus lane with hours of operation. So we need to observe these signs and know what it's telling us. So Monday to Saturday, 7:30 AM to 9:30 AM. So at the time that we're driving down here is out of those hours, so we're going to use the bus lane. If you decided to not use the bus lane and drive down in the right hand lane, you'd be marked for normal driving position. And if you continue to do so, disregarding all these signs, the examiner could mark that as serious. Okay, and here we have another example of a bus lane, again with hours of operation. So it's the same as last time. We're in Norwich, heading up to the Roman Catholic Cathedral. There's the sign on the left. 7:30 AM to 9:30 AM, Monday to Saturday. So again, we should be using the bus lane outside of those hours. If you don't, you will be marked as a fault. So look, there's another sign here on the left, and then another one. So there's 3 signs on that section of road letting you know about this bus lane. So we really want to be observing those signs and acting accordingly to avoid getting needless faults. Okay, so now we have another bus lane. This one is in operation 24/7 because signs do not say otherwise. It just says bus lane. So now we're stuck behind this van. And so what else can use bus lanes? Well, we've got taxis, cyclists can use that. As we come forwards, notice what the van does. He's popped on a signal to be turning right. There's a break in the solid white line, and we're just going to pause it there because there's a few things to notice. Look at the sign for the roundabout. If we continue ahead, another bus lane with a camera, and look at the junction on the right, that car's got a signal on. So we just need to see that hazard and be aware. So the question is, can we pass the van on the left and not be penalised in a driving test? So I've asked our ADI enforcement officer, and he assures me that we can pass. We won't be penalised on a test to pass, as long as we return back to the normal driving position out of the bus lane after we've passed his vehicle, and of course that we check our mirrors and it's safe to do so and that we don't affect other traffic. So with that said, let's check our mirrors, round we go, return back to our normal position out of the bus lane. Now we've got the lorry and the hazard there. The line breaks, so normally we'd move back into the left lane if we were turning left. So we're just going to wait till after that lorry, mirror signal, position, ready for the roundabout. And remember, this one we really don't want to be going ahead because you will go into a bus only lane. Okay, so we've got a straightforward one here, traffic lights. Obviously we must wait before the first stop line and not encroach into the cycle area. Worth noting that the motorcycle has waited out of that area, which is correct. Motorcycles should not be waiting in there, just pedal cyclists. And also just worth noting on this junction that the lanes are quite narrow, so we really want to be aware, looking in our mirrors and keeping nice lane discipline through this section. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. The time this was taken is at 9 o'clock in the morning. So can you look ahead and notice the signs that are coming up here? So we've got two signs giving us clear information that if we go ahead, we will go into a bus only lane, and then there's a mini roundabout. So where should we go? It's 9 o'clock in the morning. What should we be doing here? And we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to go ahead, because at this point the examiner will say, stop, I need you to turn around, and advise you that there is a camera and a bus lane ahead, and say that the examiner's effectively just saved you getting a fine and 3 points on your license. So he'll ask you to turn around when safe to do so, and yes, you've just failed your part 2 test. Serious fault. So this clip really does emphasize, when the examiner says to you at the start of the test, I want you to follow the road ahead at all times unless road signs or markings tell you otherwise, this is what you need to do. You need to know that you need to be turning right. He won't ask you to do so. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this video useful. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you want me to cover next, and I'll do that for you. I am here to help you pass that test, hopefully first time. And if it wasn't first time, let's get it on the second time. Or the third. Okay, so that is very good. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Now perhaps the sound in there. That might sort that sound out actually. Pop that up there. Focus on that. So hi. Okay, literally got my neighbours just watching me here, so I'm just going to let them go. They're just sitting talking to their dog, wondering what's going on. I'm just going to pretend I'm reading something. Let's start with a joke. So, let me think. Horse walks into a bar. The barman says, "Why the long face?" I know, it's great, it's priceless. Not very funny. What is better than a part B? A partay! A partay! Silly sod. Okay, so we're going to be talking about part 2. This is the part 2. Thank you.